Women always talk on the phone. Husband hangs up as soon as he gets near her. The wife lied that she was calling her best friend. But Bob obviously didn't believe her, because he realized that she was always going out without telling him. He even found a matchbook from a hotel in her bag. The man believed there was more to it than that. A few years ago, they were strangers. Bob is a billionaire designer. He had a successful career but a bad marriage. His best friend, Tom, asked him to invest in a painting exhibition and promised to introduce him to a beautiful girlfriend at the exhibition. Bob was so impressed. A few days later, the exhibition was held as scheduled, but the girl Tom told him about was vulgar. Bob was obviously a bit overwhelmed. As he was leaving, he bumped into a fresh woman. He spills red wine all over her. She was furious. So the two of them parted on bad terms. But fate is a delicate thing. A week later, Bob met her again in the shopping room. Her name was Lena. He apologized sincerely for last week's rudeness. Lena's friendliness grew on Bob. Gradually, she realized that the girl's beauty and the way she spoke were exactly what she was looking for in a man. Bob took the initiative and invited Lena to dinner. At the Japanese restaurant, Lena told her sad story. She used to be the vice president of a big company. She quit her job because she didn't want to accept her boss's subterfuge. Her experience made Bob very sympathetic. The two of them had a great conversation that night. There was always something to talk about. Soon after Lena returned to the flat, Bob felt lost like never before. The next day, he couldn't even be bothered with work. That night, Bob waited in front of Lena's flat. Soon after, he saw a man walking Lena home, and he was acting very close to her. Until Lena went home alone, Bob's heart was torn. For a few moments, he rang the doorbell. He was eager to talk to Lena. Bob asked around about the man just now. Lena said it was just a good friend. Bob was relieved. Then Lena suddenly confessed to her.
I like you.
Bob didn't even think about it and decided to have a relationship with Lena. What happened below is only for those who like it. Afterwards, Lena said she was abused by her parents when she was a child. She broke it off when she became an adult. And that's when Bob fell for her again. They even got married without getting to know each other. Bob's friends and family were there. Lena's beautiful face was the envy of his friends. Lena's only 2 friends attended. Bob was in a state of bliss. So he didn't suspect a thing. Soon their love child was born. Everything was so beautiful. But soon Lena changed her face. And that made Bob realize that something was wrong. The woman had just left her husband's side. Bob, who had been pretending to be asleep, woke up instantly. He began to look through his wife's backpack. Inside, he found a box of hotel matches. The husband was obviously aware of the same thing. Lena was recognized by an old lady when they were eating at a restaurant. Lena said that she had recognized the wrong person. Although she didn't say so on the surface. But she believed she was the one. Indeed, Bob was already suspicious. After that, Lena was always on the phone with a happy face. Strangely, Bob would hang up as soon as he came near her. He started complaining about it to his best friend Tony. Tony thought it was normal for a couple to fight. But Bob didn't think so. One day, while chatting with his assistant, he learned that she and his wife Lena graduated from the same university. And even more coincidentally, they were in the same class. But when Bob said his wife's name, the assistant said she didn't know her. There are so many people in the school, it's normal that they don't know each other. The assistant went on to say that there was a big event at that time that had stirred up the whole school. A student died of a heart attack during the speech. When he got home from work, Bob deliberately asked Lena if she remembered what the assistant had said. Strangely, Lena still didn't know. At this point, Bob was sure that something was wrong with his wife. The next day he pretended to go on a business trip. We've come to Lena's birthplace to look for clues. Something unexpected happened. The passersby said they didn't know this man at all. While Bob was at a loss, a bearded man said he not only knew him, but that they were once husband and wife. Lena was responsible for what happened to him. Before leaving, she advised Bob to stay away from her. After Bob's questioning, the bearded man told him the address of Lena's parents' house. Bob didn't dare to hesitate and went to the destination at once. Only when he met his parents-in-law did he realize they are not as strict as Lena said. Bob decided to take them home to question his wife. Lena was caught off guard and had to put on a smile. After her parents leave, she asks Bob for forgiveness. She admitted there was no subterfuge and no domestic abuse. She changed her name and made up a story just to marry Bob. Because she fell in love with Bob the first time she met him. Bob went soft. After all, Lena was still the mother of his children. Then Lena had her second child. But friends said the baby didn't look like Bob. So Bob became suspicious again. The next day, Bob saw a new employee who looked familiar. After a long time of recalling, he finally remembered that when he and Lena got married, the woman had attended the wedding as Lena's friend. Under Bob's questioning, the woman explained that Lena had paid for her to be there. Lena didn't hide it anymore. She confessed that she and Bob didn't meet by chance. 5 years ago, she asked a friend to get Bob's information. And then she created a series of coincidences at the exhibition. She loved Bob too much. That's why she didn't dare to expose her lies. She was afraid that Bob would hate her for it. That night, he went to Tony again to complain. Tony said he had to trust his wife. But Bob couldn't accept Lena's concealment over and over again. Until Wednesday afternoon when Lena mistakenly sent a bank statement to Bob's office. The bill was for a hotel. And it was always on a Wednesday. He instantly thought of the matches he'd found in Lena's bag. It was clear Bob was being taken for a fool. He ran home in a rage. He was determined to get to the bottom of it. If you knew what she did, you would have slapped her. The man found a hotel matchbook in his wife's bag. Then the hotel bill. Bob came home in a rage and asked Lena who she'd gone to the hotel with. The wife didn't say. But Bob was sure it was a friend of his. On the street, he thought about the people around him. And instantly thought of Tom. Because he was the only one who played golf on Wednesdays. Bob decided to confront Lena in person, only to find his house in shambles. The psychiatrist and the police were waiting for him. Lena had a huge bruise on her face. Bob was charged with domestic violence and mental illness. At the hearing, Bob stated that he never abused Lena. Instead, he and Tom were working together to set themselves up. Then the court subpoenaed Tom, but he wouldn't admit it. And golfing on Wednesdays has been Tom's habit for 10 years. Looking at Bob's puzzled look, Tom produced a letter from his golfing buddies to prove his innocence. When confronted with the hotel bill, Lena claimed she hadn't been able to replace the credit card. She only found out about it recently. Bob was furious. He rushed over to Lena and was about to hit her. And that confirmed his psychotic accusations. But Bob didn't give up hope. He realized the man behind him wasn't Tom. It was another lawyer friend, Tony. Bob had mentioned his attitude towards Lena to him more than once before. First Tony said he'd investigate her, then he said he'd trust her. Bob was never in doubt about what was true and what was false. And Tony had recently paid for a mansion in full. But he was having trouble making the down payment with his income. So Bob used a trick to get his best friend to call Lena. That Bob was acting strange these days. And sure enough, Lena came to see Bob the next day. Bob's friend distracted the security guard. And the two of them had some alone time. At this point, Lena stopped pretending. All this was her plan. Naturally, it was all about Bob's money. If she divorces, she'll only get half. If she kills him, she'll be liable. The only way Lena will get all the money is if Bob is put in a mental hospital and loses the power to make decisions. As for the hotel, it was with Tony. The reason for this is his status as a lawyer. Not only did it shut Tony up, but it also allowed him to make plans to get Lena off the hook. What a bad girl. Bob stared at Lena and said, "Your plan was perfect, but accusing me of insanity was your biggest mistake. Because crazy people aren't liable for murder." Then Bob struck back and strangled Lena to death. Bob was acquitted of insanity.